All right, another great episode of Sport Pharmacy has dropped. Or I should say another great issue.
Yeah.
Really, I was watching Netflix last night.
So it's an episode, but we're
An episode of this podcast.
episode of Jess and Sean.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, for those who have had a chance to read the magazine, I started off with the blood, sweat, and tears. That's how I'm kicking off the leaky gut issue with that. And the reason I always tell that is people think blood, sweat, and tears. They think about those are all visual things that you can see from an athletic standpoint, right? You can look at an athlete like, wow, I see the sweat come off their head, their tears, the emotion, the blood, because I don't know, they skinned their knee or whatever it was. You can see all that. But what you can't see is what's happening on the inside as it relates to their gut health.
True.
The stresses of it. And I always think about, the stresses that are placed onto the athlete, and very rarely do people, including the athletes themselves, think about the stress that it's putting on their gut.
Yeah. I mean, as an athlete myself, I don't think I ever thought of minus my stomach. Let me just throw this out there because most people are going to notice it. I can't say the word stomach. I say stomach. It's funny. So I'm just going to say sorry. I don't say it correctly. But I, as an athlete, never noticed it. And having had dealt with an eating disorder, never noticed any changes or wasn't in tune enough to notice changes to my GI tract of health when I was training heavy. So I think it's really interesting as you kind of break down the impacts of training on your gut and what that does. I think it's really intriguing after reading your article.
No, and it's so fascinating. And so for those who haven't heard of leaky gut before, kind of the quick rundown of it is it's basically when the epithelial layer, so that's kind of like if this is your gut, you think about it as a tube. When this inside layer, normally the epithelial is that inside layer, when that's normally you have tight junctions in between proteins that kind of hold it together, but through inflammation, different things going on, that those can get irritated. So instead of being tight, they start to loosen up, and you start getting toxins that can flow into your systemic circulation, inflammatory cytokines, etc., which causes a lot of issues. So that's kind of leaky gut on a very high level thing. But going back to, you maybe think well, wait a minute, how's this happening in athletes?
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing. It happens almost anytime you're training, especially if it's at a hard intensity. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. So normally you have blood flowing to the gut, right? It's supplying nutrients, it's supplying all these things. Well, when you're training, where does that blood go?
To your muscles.
To your muscles. So if it's going to your muscles, where is it not going?
Your GI tract.
Your GI tract, exactly. And so that's what is happening is you're not getting that blood flow to it. As a result, you get what's hypoperfusion, which basically, lack of better words, is not getting enough there.
Okay.
And that's what causes it to start to break down. But it's fascinating. It used to be thought that it was mostly an endurance athlete. So let's say you're running for an hour at, say, a 70% VO2, so at relatively higher intensity. That's okay, that's where they start to see it breaking down. But what's fascinating, and this may appeal to you because I know you're really into weightlifting, was
and not endurance. So yes, feed me more information. I'm intrigued.
Exactly. So they found, this was a fascinating study. They had college age students who trained 5 to 10 hours a week. So that's relatively decent training at 10 hours a week.
Yes.
But they were just doing 6 sets of leg press at about 55 to 75% of 1 rep max. And so again, it's not wow, that was the most crazy workout ever, but they found with that alone was enough to stimulate leaky gut symptoms.
That's crazy, because I would think leaky gut would, the way you describe it, and this stress on your body, obviously would be long durations. Like you said, I would assume it more in endurance athletes. I know I see it, well, not see it, but you hear a lot more GI issues with mainly runners, some of it because of the running, mainly because of the endurance or the long period of under stress. But I would never have thought of it in a situation where you're only doing, a couple sets at a moderate percentage of weight and that inducing leaky gut. That's just
Yeah.
intriguing. Like it has me wondering, like, what have I done recently to my belly?
Give me a minute, Sean. I need to go take a glutamine supplement right now.
Yeah.
I'll be right back in
Yeah.
5.
But I mean, the way you describe leaky gut, I do think, I guess to tie it into so many of our conversations, it's basically the same thing that happens. Stress is stress to your body.
Yeah.
Like stress being that physical pounding, working out, the mental stress, or even like emotional and physical stress that you may have from your day at work, dealing with kids, anything, death in the family, stuff like that. And I guess it just goes to show that all of this, your body can't differentiate the difference. And so it reacts in the same way. Mm-hmm. So I find it so fascinating. Do you think, so kind of like, as I was talking about with seeing female, I do a lot with female athletes, as but a lot of my female athletes are anemic and so low iron. Do you think and a lot of them tend to be leaner endurance athletes? Is there a correlation, or just is it causation, correlation? Any thoughts or any?
My thoughts, I haven't seen many studies showing, hey, this person had, I mean, it's so hard to tell with, any sort of time course, especially with leaky gut, when are things developing exactly?
Yeah.
But I think from a mechanistic standpoint, you can definitely argue them being connected. And, here's a case in point is obviously the oxygen deliveries for the gut itself. But I even think about, we know that there's a really, really strong correlation between anemia and anxiety, depression, mental health, wellness.
Correct.
That's very well established in scientific literature. From a mechanistic standpoint, we know if somebody's more anxious, if they're more stressed, they're going to be higher inflamed in the body as a whole. Mm-hmm. We know that there's that constant communication going from the brain to the gut to the brain, back and forth there. And so I think from a mechanistic standpoint, you can very well argue that if someone's anemic, that it can lead to a leaky gut type condition. Yeah. And, if you're anemic, if you're inflamed, well, if someone's inflamed, their ability to absorb iron is compromised even further.
Correct.
That's one of the reasons why I think there's such a strong correlation between someone who's obesity and anemia, because I think their bodies are so inflamed, they're no longer even able to absorb it across. So it's a double-edged sword. So I think definitely from a mechanistic standpoint, I can see that happening. I was thinking about female athletes too, especially endurance runners. I know there's always the thought of like that foot strike anemia where you're constantly pounding, with hemolysis.
Yeah. No, I find that's really interesting. I didn't know if you had read the research or if there was the research in that. So, but it does make sense in just mechanistically breaking it down and going through the body processes. So super interesting. Yeah, so if you were to have leaky gut or suspect you do, what if we go through some solutions or ways to help minimize the impacts or improve the symptoms? So what is your favorite, and I'm going to go with, as a dietitian, I know the answer, but what is your favorite way to heal the gut?
We are definitely going food.
Let's go food.
So the big things I always put emphasis on are a high fruit and vegetable diet. I think those are the best things, assuming there's not a specific fruit or specific vegetable that's triggering the reactions. But that aside, on a very high level, if anyone's having gut issues, first thing that I'll have them do is I'll have them remove dairy and I'll have them remove gluten-containing foods. Okay. I find does it catch everyone? Absolutely not. But I find for, say 60 to 70%, that's a low-hanging fruit that seems to help a lot of people, at least anecdotally. But then, so I'll usually remove those, and then I'll try to really increase the fruit and vegetable content. I like fruit and vegetables for two reasons. One is that they're fiber. Fiber is just good for the gut microbiome. And then two, it has antioxidants in it. Now, antioxidants I find really fascinating for two different reasons. One is most people recognize the fact that they have anti-inflammatory benefits. You know, your vitamin C's, they can
Yeah.
reduce inflammation, vitamin E's, your polyphenols, they get absorbed, they get metabolized. Some of those metabolites reduce expression of inflammatory pathways. But the other cool thing, and I think there's been a lot more research in the last 10 years, a lot of these antioxidants, the gut or the bacteria in the gut actually chew it up. And for lack of better words, since we're on the gut issue, it poops out short chain fatty acids. And these short chain fatty acids then heal the gut lining, get absorbed into circulation, affect brain chemistry. So
Super
that
interesting.
that's where I'd go first.
So I will just give the I appreciate your tip that I use now frequently. So an action step that I like to give most of my athletes is to get 6 to 8 fistfuls of fruits and vegetables per day. I feel like that's easy. You don't have to weigh, you don't have to measure. You can look at your fist and you can look at how much food you have on your plate. One thing I usually like to add to that is try and make that 3 to 4 different colors of fruits and vegetables. So add some reds and some greens and some blues and stuff like that, but making sure not only that you're getting those servings, but you're also mixing and matching some colors in there. So, um,
That's
and I
that's
know,
awesome.
yeah, that I had to step it up a little bit, John.
I love it. I love it.
The
It's like you took the words right out of my brain. I love it.
the
The
only caution, obviously, I think both of us would definitely highly put a big asterisk for people getting ready to compete or train is watching when you consume all these fruits and vegetables right before training due to the high fiber content right before 60 minutes within training is probably may cause some extra stomach discomfort. So before you do that, the rest of your day, you got 23 more hours of your day. So enjoy them then.
Mhm. And two other easy things you can do with there, because when I'm talking with athletes, when I say the 3 to 4 colors, you're like, oh my gosh, I only eat one now. I need to do this practical. Two easy solutions: smoothies.
Okay, love it. Yep.
You can knock off greens or
Multiple
blues,
colors.
wild throw, spinach, whatever. So there, and then the other easy one is if you ever go to the grocery store and you get like the frozen bag of mixed veggies, like a
Yes.
Normandy blend or a
Yeah.
California type blends. Usually those have 3 or 4. So in one meal, you're able to knock off 4 colors at one shot. So
Love it.
pro tip.
Pro tip. So I think the next way to heal the gut or to help is going to be hydration. I think is
Yep.
to be my next, I guess, step on the pyramid if we're looking at gut healing importance levels. So what are your thoughts on hydration and what do the studies show on hydration?
Hydration has a big impact. We were talking about earlier how running at 70% VO2 max for an hour is where the classical studies were done showing the
Mm-hmm.
leaky gut issues. There's actually one interesting study that they did where they had 3 different groups. One group did again 60 minute treadmill, 70% VO2. So your classic setup. They had
Okay.
one group with no fluid, one group with like a carbohydrate liquid solution, the one was just plain water.
Okay.
And what they found was in the group that had no water, they lost roughly about 1.5% of their body weight, which honestly isn't that big of an amount. Like, if you think about it, I mean, I think about football practice, or yeah, I'm sure you had probably volleyball practice where you lost way more than just 1 pound of,
Yeah,
1.5%.
I was going to say, and studies say 2% is where you start seeing changes in athletic
First.
performance. So that's still, it's not a lot, but it doesn't take a lot to be,
Yeah.
to start having some impact. So
Yeah.
that's
So yeah.
study.
So like, exactly. I mean, so very minimal water, relatively speaking, minimal water loss.
Mm-hmm.
And they found even at that level, again, you didn't even hit that 2% goal threshold. They saw that was enough to induce leaky gut. Now, in the conditions where they had the water beverage and the carbohydrate solution, where they were able to prevent the fluid loss, there
Mm-hmm.
was no changes in leaky gut symptoms
Okay.
in the time period that followed. So, again, matching hydration on there. If I had to give an easy pro tip is, making sure that you are drinking water throughout the day.
Yeah.
I always tell people if you're not drinking, if you're not going to the bathroom at least every 90 minutes, you're probably dehydrated.
Huh.
especially 2 hours. If you're going longer than 2 hours without going to the bathroom, you're probably, you're on the wrong side of the
Yeah.
slope.
Yeah.
So that's one of the action steps I always give people on there. Now, on your side, do you have any favorite action steps?
I usually tell people my big one is start the morning with a glass of water. So at least try to get 12 to 16 ounces right when you first wake up. I'm a big, get the morning sunshine, get a full glass of water in the morning. I also like to tell people not to drink it all right before bed. Like, don't go your whole day and then try and drink 32 ounces at 10:30 at night, because it's going to impact your sleep, and sleep plays such a critical role in so much of performance and health, that you do need to spread that water out throughout the day. And like you said, making sure you're kind of gauging how often you're using the restroom is a good way to tell of your hydration status. I get a lot of questions. You probably get the same ones. How much should I drink? Like, how
Yeah.
many glasses of water? How much of this? I don't know if yours, but my usual explanation for most people is that half your body weight in ounces of water is a good standard. And then if you're an athlete, to add some electrolytes to that, especially when you're training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. If anyone's looking for one that's sports certified that I'll use for electrolytes, I'm a big fan of LMNT
Okay. Amen.
on there. I'm
Yes.
not paid by them at all, so I'm not a big shill for LMNT. So, but just
It's
know
a
it.
great, I would say it's a great electrolyte supplement.
Yeah.
It does not have the carbohydrates in it, so you may have to add a little bit extra especially if you're going long performance wise, but I love it for the electrolyte blend that it does offer. So, um, and I guess we will continue on nutraceuticals.
Absolutely.
Shall we?